The Cybertruck. People have strong opinions about it. Well, let's be honest, it's designed for people to have strong opinions about. And if I don't make a video about it, I'm not doing my job. So today we're going to look at the short history of this design masterpiece, the type of people who drive them, why they drive them, whether it's a successful transportation product, even on its own terms, and maybe most important to ponder today, whether the Cybertruck is a metaphor for this cringeworthy age we live in. Which obviously the answer is yes. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion on the aesthetics of this vehicle, but you absolutely cannot dispute the fact that it looks like something that was 3D rendered on a mid-90s video game console. It uses the well-worn approach of marketing a pickup truck as an urban assault vehicle, but it takes this idea to a whole other level. What they unveiled at the launch event was more like a dystopian armored personnel carrier, fit for navigating post-apocalyptic landscapes, hermetically sealed from the zombie hordes outside. I'm going to talk about how sales are going later in this video, but first, let's acknowledge that despite the goofy design, several challenges at launch, and the Tesla CEO making himself into one of the most divisive figures imaginable, Tesla has somehow still managed to sell more than 0 Cybertrucks. Which raises the question, who exactly is it that's buying these things? And luckily, we can get answers from the world's foremost repository of high-quality, non-clickbait journalism, Business Insider. The article in question is under Business Insider's health subheading, and the title of the article is, "I drive a Cybertruck and I'm sick of people flipping me off. I wish they understood how helpful this car is for me." Let's just hit the highlights here. Subject Cybertruck owner has a job that requires a lot of travel all over the state of Arizona, doing Social Security disability psychological assessments, a job which requires a lot of compassion. Related, subject affectionately nicknames their Cybertruck Brick House. Prior to purchasing beloved Cybertruck, subject had a lot of experience making the 100-mile drive between Phoenix and Tucson, and for years fantasized about having a self-driving car to make the tedious journey more tolerable. I'd like to say it's notable that this person did not fantasize about just having a train that runs between a metro area of 5 million and a metro area of 1 million that's 100 miles away. But let's be real, it's 2025 and it's Arizona. Here's the piece I actually think is super interesting. Subject did lease a Tesla Model 3 with self-driving features and a nickname for a while, but when the lease was expiring, they had an epiphany. They liked the Model 3, but since the vehicle was technically for work, there was a particular tax break they could take advantage of if they traded up to a much, much larger, heavier vehicle. I had to research this one. You know, there are actually lots of underlying regulations that incentivize auto manufacturers to supply lots and lots of pickup trucks to the market. But it turns out there are supply side incentives too. I don't just mean EV tax credits, I mean Section 179 of the US tax code, which apparently lets you write off the entire expense of a vehicle if it has a 6-foot cargo bed and it weighs at least 6,000 pounds. And yes, the Cybertruck is extraordinarily heavy. So if you use your Cybertruck primarily for work, you can be maximally antisocial both in terms of the vehicle you drive and in terms of dodging taxes to the maximum extent possible. Our subject still can't understand why they're shunned by polite society. Heartbreakingly, they've been flipped off, mean-mugged, and given many thumbs down. This is Cybertruck owner as modern Christ figure, enduring abuse at the hands of infidels who don't appreciate a highly tax-advantaged vehicle with a vaguely Minecraft aesthetic. Like, I can't imagine any reason for buying a vehicle like this other than that you wanted attention, so you're getting what you wanted. I mean, you not only got a Business Insider article out of it, you got me to talk about it. Okay, what we've covered so far is honestly only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to issues with the Cybertruck. Like, I can barely even understand how it got to market in the first place, so I've got a lot more to come. Connect on the apps if once a week just isn't enough of my scintillating personality. And if you ever wonder, why did he make a video about that? Or I wonder what he's working on next. I write posts on my Patreon that cover a lot of that stuff, so consider supporting there if you haven't already. Okay, so we've established that the motor vehicle in question is very stupid looking, and a lot of people don't love the politics of the guy who runs the company that manufactures them. But there's some even more foundational problems. Take, for example, the fact that the average car model is expected to have something like 3.2 recalls over a theoretical 30-year production run. Well, the Cybertruck was delivered to customers in November 2023, so we've got 2 years under our belt. And right now, we're sitting at 10 recalls, which, if you straight line extrapolate out to 30 years, well, I'll let you do the math. Also, you could rationalize this by saying these are minor. I just submit to you that if you've never been driving 60 miles an hour on a freeway in a torrential downpour and had a windshield wiper suddenly stop working, you don't know the true meaning of terror. Anyway, the latest recall in the news is this optional light bar that goes along the top of the windshield, which I guess is glued in place and the glue isn't adhering properly. So when the light bar accidentally detaches, it essentially becomes a projectile headed toward those in the Cybertruck's general vicinity. So yeah, these are definitely the engineers I'm counting on to hasten the imminent colonization of Mars. So that's vaguely disturbing, but what's maybe worse is some features of the Cybertruck that haven't been recalled. There have now been multiple wrongful death lawsuits stemming from people being trapped in burning Cybertrucks because the battery-powered door unlocking mechanism apparently doesn't function when it's been burnt up, and the backup mechanical door release is quote-unquote concealed beneath the liner of the map pocket at the bottom of the door, hidden, unlabeled, and impractical to locate or use in the smoke and chaos of a post-crash fire. Look, crashes happen. That's part of the deal we've made as a car-dependent society. But turning survivable crashes into truly horrifying deaths shouldn't be part of that deal. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of comments on this video that I'm just a hater and the Cybertruck is a visionary transportation product and I'm just too stupid or unimaginative to get it. Well, it seems like I have a lot of company because to say that sales have been underwhelming is probably the understatement of the century. According to a recent piece in The Verge, Tesla sold 5,385 Cybertrucks in the third quarter of 2025, down from 14,000 over the same period in 2024. The company has only sold about 16,000 units through the first 3 quarters of this year, but even the higher sales numbers in 2024 were drastically lower than the 250,000 the Tesla CEO is projecting to sell annually. And just in case you're thinking, well, maybe they're making it up in overseas sales. Well, it's not going to happen in Europe since there are a variety of safety rules aimed at protecting pedestrians, including limitations on quote-unquote external protrusions on vehicles. Or to quote the European Transport Safety Council, a vehicle of this size, power, and huge weight will be lethal to pedestrians and cyclists in a collision. The various troubling recalls and fiery deaths and whatnot have probably contributed to slumping sales. Or it's possible that people are scared off by the prospect of being mean mugged or given a thumbs down by random passersby. But I think it's worth looking at the way this thing was rolled out. It was pitched as having a 500-mile battery range, but when it was delivered, it was a 200-mile range. It was supposed to be basically indestructible and apocalypse-proof, and, well, that kind of blew that one. But maybe most important, the Cybertruck was originally pitched as having a $39,900 price tag for the entry-level model, and it generated pretty big pre-order numbers based on the stated price and specs, but when it finally arrived on the market, the base model was priced at over $60,000. It's a bit like the Vegas Loop all over again. Promise a 60-station system that you can build out in 2 or 3 years that runs autonomous high-capacity pods at 155 miles an hour, but then deliver like 6 stations in 3 years running glorified taxis that top out at maybe 40 miles an hour, driven by humans. Apparently, I've been doing things wrong the whole time, and the real key to success is overpromise and underdeliver. Because last I checked, Tesla shareholders approved compensation for their CEO that could hit $1 trillion. And yeah, there are a bunch of benchmarks that need to be hit, but the dissonance between the CEO's image as a sort of business and tech industry savant and how things like the Cybertruck and the Vegas Loop are actually performing, well, it seems pretty jarring, but then again, I am not a professional capitalism understander. But what I do understand is that the supply of Cybertrucks currently far outstrips demand. And the way that you know this is because they're being donated to a police department in exactly the city you expect. And they're being procured by the US military, not as the armored personnel carrier the Cybertruck is cosplaying as, but for target practice. It is interesting that this vehicle that has become so irreparably right-wing coded is now being deployed by law enforcement and the military. It's all honestly just a bit on the nose for me, but this is the era we're going to be living through for the foreseeable future. Well, at least until we can get our country back. Cuts to foreign aid have made headlines this year. They've also raised real concerns about people's well-being in some of the world's poorest communities, and it can be hard to know what's actually happening or how to help. GiveWell doesn't claim to have all the answers, but its team of researchers is analyzing the impact of foreign aid funding cuts in real time, identifying highly cost-effective ways to save and improve lives, and sharing what they're learning for free so that everyone can have a big impact. GiveWell is a nonprofit that spent 18 years researching global health and poverty alleviation, and they only direct funding to the highest impact opportunities they've found. Over 150,000 donors have already trusted GiveWell to direct more than $2.5 billion to these high impact opportunities. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 300,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. You can find all of GiveWell's research and recommendations on their site for free. And thanks to the donors who chose to sponsor their research, GiveWell doesn't take a cut from your tax-deductible donation to their recommended funds. So you can imagine why GiveWell's approach is appealing for someone like me because, confession time, I am a maximizer. And what that means is I find it hard to be decisive unless I know for sure I'm choosing the optimal thing. And I suspect a lot of you are like this too, even when you know that sometimes not making a decision is the worst decision of all. Like for me, when I have made recommendations to donate to nonprofits on this channel, they're things related to urbanism and transportation that I actually know about. But when it comes to things that save literally hundreds of thousands of lives, like malaria treatment, I'm kind of hopeless, which means I might not do anything at all. GiveWell solves that problem. Now, if this is your first gift through GiveWell, you can have your donation matched up to $100,000 before the end of the year, or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org and select YouTube and enter CityNerd at checkout. Make sure they know that you heard about GiveWell from the CityNerd channel to get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org to donate or find out more. And that's all I've got. Thanks for joining today, and thanks as always to the patrons for your direct support, which gives me the leeway to get into probably more trouble than I would otherwise. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new episode next week, and I'll see you then.